Wolfpack Nation, thank you so much for tuning back in here for part 2 here. I know, obviously, it probably wasn't a tough decision to tune back in because, let's be real, this is going to be a fun conversation here. I've been looking forward to this part. So if you haven't checked out part 1 yet with Coach Edmonds, make sure to go check that out. As again, we talk about her time at Rice, talk about the transition process to the head coaching side, talk about the transfer portal, a bunch of different stuff. So definitely make sure to go check that one out. But before we get rolling, just make sure, again, if you haven't already, make sure, again, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and give us a follow. Tuffy Talk now. But so jumping back in, Coach, one thing is, we got to talk about for sure, with Coach Moore. There's no doubt, I think, to any of us that, how amazing of a job he's done, at his time at NC State. But one of the things, honestly, too, because, a lot of times, you don't really know a lot of the inside in terms of, what's done. Like, you see the results, but you may not necessarily know kind of what caused it. And, definitely from us interviewing former players like Ace Koenig and talking to former players as well, one of the things that is undeniable about Coach Moore is he's probably one of the hardest working coaches that I've ever heard of. Now, again, I'm saying this not like I've talked to every head coach or know how hard every coach works, but I just know that, period, point blank, he works hard. That man, he watches film like crazy. I know Coach Ace basically would tell stories about how he would sleep in the office sometimes, watching film. And so, want to kind of, if you don't mind, obviously I know you know the man very well, but do you have anything, kind of to add in terms of, maybe some of your favorite things about Coach Moore? And then, is there another piece besides kind of the hard work that you kind of admire and have tried to bring into your own coaching?
Yeah, he grinds. I don't know if there is another head coach out there that watches as much film as he does. Night in, night out, he's either watching his team or the next opponent. And it's something that every game we have an advantage because he found so many ways in film to pick apart a team's defense or a team's baseline out of bounds defense. He saw ways through those film sessions to pick apart some things, to add tweaks to plays. And sometimes that wasn't always easy for the players because we may have 3 or 4 tweaks for Georgia Tech. We may have 3 or 4 different tweaks for Duke. We may have 3 or 4 different tweaks for Carolina. But those tweaks were reasons why we were, getting the edge in some of those games. So unbelievable hard worker. He cares a lot. He has a really, really big heart. He loves his players. He cares about his players. He's super proud of them. I'm sure you guys saw after the Sweet 16 game and the huddle, he's like, I'm so proud and so happy for y'all. And he's crying already, making me cry. And it's like, I'm not even there, but I feel the emotion and know how I can hear everything he's saying because I heard it for 8 years. Right. So I think that's another special piece. I say all the time, I learned a lot of X's and O's from him. I learned how to win from him. But the thing that I learned the most from him was how to do things in your program the right way and with the right people. And very first year working for him, we needed a post player bad to replace Keisha Gatling, which we didn't do, but we needed one bad. And we were in with a top 50 recruit, and I had got him on the phone with her. He came to me, handed me the phone. He's like, "We're done." I'm like, "You mean the conversation's done?" He was like, No, we're done. I'm like, "Done what?" He was like, "Done recruiting her." I'm like, "Okay, why?" And he's like, "Well, she yelled at her mom on the phone with me. So if she'll yell at her mom, she'll yell at me. Yeah. I'm not recruiting." And I'm like, "But we need a post." He's like, "I'm not doing it." And I'm like, "Okay, I get it." So for that point on, if there was ever a character issue or ever any type of concern, I knew not to second guess him. I knew that's not what we were doing. I knew that's not the path we were going. There was a young lady that was transferring from the ACC, and she wanted to stay in the ACC. She had some things going on in her background that if you Googled it, you could find it. So Coach Moore, I was like, "Coach Moore, we're not doing it." He's like, "All right, I believe you. We're not doing it." But then she ends up somewhere else in the ACC. But it was just, he does things the right way and with the right people. And he builds the program, and the locker room is a happy locker room. And that's the difference. I think that's why the success has been there.
Wow. I love that.
So as you were giving that story, I heard a little bit of that Texas twang. Did you get that from Coach Moore, or you got that down since you've been in Rice?
I don't know. I've always had a little bit of a twang being from North Carolina, but then Coach Moore having Tennessee, North Carolina, and Texas twang, and then now I'm down here in the South, so it comes out on certain words more than others.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I noticed.
So you were talking about.
Oh, you go ahead. Okay. You go ahead, Greg. You got it.
Yeah, I just had a follow up on that. So as you're talking about Coach Moore, and you hear the question asked, I've heard it asked lots of times with some of the young ladies in their interviews. Is there a favorite Coach Moore ism or saying that he does? I've always enjoyed hearing those parts of the ladies' stories.
Yeah. I love the ones that he would say, like after we would win a game, but it wouldn't be a pretty game. And he would say, it's an ugly baby, but it's our baby, so we'll take it. So
I've heard that one. Yeah.
I love that one.
That's a good one.
There's just so many, and so many that he keeps you on your toes. You never know what he's going to say. And so there's definitely a ton more that I'm sure that if I thought of after this, I'd be like, man, I wish I would have said that one. But the ugly baby always comes to my mind.
It'd be funny to know if your own players now could say the same thing about any euphemisms you may have developed over time. That'd be curious to know.
True. It's funny. In certain circumstances, I'll be like, my old boss would say, and I would like hit them with what he would say. So they probably do have some of that already.
That's cool.
They have some old boss stories.
Yes. Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I was saying, I mean, obviously you and Coach Moore close. But I saw a story on Twitter recently. I think it was Valentine's Day that he had flown down to Houston to deliver you the ACC title ring. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean it was Valentine's Day. It worked out really well that there was also a recruit game going on for a top ranked recruit that they're recruiting from Texas. Sure. But he was like, "Hey, are you available that day? If so, I could fly and go see this kid. We could also have lunch together, and I could bring you your ring." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So it worked out. It benefited me to get the ring, but he was also able to see me, give me the ring, but also go see a recruit. Cool. So it worked out.
I just think that's great that y'all are still have a very close relationship. And I mean, that it shows the camaraderie and the family environment that you were talking to earlier.
For sure. I mean, sometimes I hang up the phone and I look down and I'm like, we were just on the phone for an hour and 45 minutes. Like, what in the world? Or he'll text me at 3:00 in the morning, y'all's time, and it'll be 2:00 in the morning. He's like, "Why are you responding?" I'm like, "I'm watching film. You taught me well." He was like, "You're right. I'm watching film too." So there's definitely a lot still there, and he's been a great mentor. Even this year, I've called him on a lot of things, and he's walked me through a lot of things. So definitely very close and very appreciative of him.
I love it. And let me ask you one clarification thing too. So when it comes to the ring, so I know for the NBA and NFL, whatever, it's like basically if at any point you're on the roster of the team that wins it all, you get a ring. So I mean, I know obviously in terms of whether you deserve it or not, there's no doubt. I mean, you did your part to build this program just like Wes Moore did. But I mean, was it like that? There's a technicality of that you do get a ring because of this, or was it that Coach Moore and the team basically said, we want to give Coach Edmonds this ring?
So this ring was that he brought to me was the ACC last year's. It wasn't completed in time before I left, so he brought it out there to me.
Oh, that's so cool.
So what's one thing, if you don't mind sharing, that you end up calling Coach Moore about that you never thought you would have to ask him about, like something that in one of those in my job they call it as duties as assigned other, what would be something like that where you were like, well, how do I even handle this? This is off the wall.
I've called him a lot about first of all, I had 10 players on roster this year. I had 2 injuries, so I got down to 8. I called him a lot, like, man, how do I get through practice? Like, how can I get better at picking the ball defense? And I have 4 post players and 3 guards that are available to me today. Or what are some drills that I can do that are competitive and I can't go 5-on-5? Things that you think as a basketball coach, you're always going to have at least 10 players. You're always going to be able to have 5-on-5. So, I mean, I called him about a lot of those things. I lost a game in quadruple overtime to UNC Charlotte at Charlotte. I activated a manager before that game and had to actually put her in the game. And I was sick. I didn't sleep for days after it because we had some leads and we lost them. and then would end up going into another overtime. And I was just like, man, now I know what you feel like. I feel like, how do I get over this? Like, I feel awful. So it was just, he was like, no, you got to look at it the other side. Like, you played a manager and you still went into 4 overtimes your first year, playing 3 post players at the same time, because others had fouled out, and in your first year to the number 1 team in the conference. Like, you should be proud of yourself. And I'm like, I'm not. I feel awful. Like, we should have won that game. So there's been a lot of things that I've caught him for that I probably the list could go on and on.
I feel like that's a story you're going to tell in 10 or 15 years.
Yes.
Like, that's the story that's going to stick with you for a while.
It is.
That's one of those. Yeah.
For sure.
So let me ask you this one scenario that I definitely thought about because you guys were rolling there at the end. So what if come Selection Sunday they said and the 16th seed Rice University is going to play NC State, and then you had to go to Reynolds, and in my head I'm thinking that'd be so cool, but in the back of my mind I'm sure like from your shoes you'd be like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, because like, how can you even did that ever even go through your head? Man, what if this ever happens? Like, what if I have to go play NC State and at Reynolds? Like, that's, and sit on the visitors bench. That's like, look at me.
Crazy.
I'm just like going, oh my gosh, like, this is crazy.
It would have felt really, really weird. It would have probably been pretty awesome though. And then in the NCAA tournament, if I had it, that is what it is. Like, let's go in there, let's give it our best shot, and let's do what we can. People are asking me all the time, like, just come out here and play. Like, I'm not coming to NC State just to play NC State. Like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not trying to take that beating quite yet. Let me get a few more players in here, and let me get the program kind of going, and then maybe. But if it's an NCAA tournament, I would just probably really be excited in the moment to be able to coach in Reynolds, even if it is against Westmore and against the great NC State team that was there this year. So that would have been crazy, but it would have been pretty awesome too at the same time.
Sure, no doubt. So let's talk some NCAA. So I know one of the things that you had told me is that you had had the chance to go to the Final Four and watch the games there. So let me ask you. Did UConn see after whooping on Stanford seem like the number 6 overall seed?
No. I have a hard time believing that they were number 6 overall. There's a lot of things that should have been different with the bracket. I think ultimately UConn should have been in Wichita bracket, and Baylor should have been in Bridgeport's region. I think that's the first thing that should have been corrected. Or if you had to keep UConn in Bridgeport, then I think honestly Louisville and NC State should have been flip-flop, because NC State was the regular season and the ACC tournament champions. They should not be paired up with UConn in Bridgeport. So if Louisville was the lowest 1 seed, then they give them that battle. Right. But to be rewarded with UConn and Bridgeport, it was awful handing. Awful.
Well, I'm curious.
When you say rewarding, you're putting that in air quotes, right?
The what?
When you say rewarded, you're actually putting that in
rewarded.
Air quotes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Megan.
Oh, I think we lost him.
Yeah, he's coming back in.
So are you there?
Give it a second. Yep. Oh.
I'll jump in with my question while he does that. So I was up there at Bridgeport. I traveled up there, and I thought everything, just looking at that game, and it was probably, honestly, women's game. It's probably the best game I've ever been to in person, like bar none. The mere fact that we only were able to get about 400, maybe 500 fans there, and that they had 9,500 UConn fans there. It's just a disservice to the game. Sure. They, you hear all these talking heads that they want to grow the game, and they're all about equality and yada yada, blah 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 blah. And until you start doing something, I just think it's just all talk. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's the relationships that ESPN has built with Connecticut. Mm-hmm. It's the NCAA putting rear ends in seats. Mm-hmm. It's not about the quality of the game. Mm-hmm. And so, what would you say about that? Like, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I think again, the right thing to do was UConn should not have been in their region unless they were a 1 seed. And if they wanted to give them a 1 seed, then somebody's got to fall off of the one line. And that couldn't have been NC State because, again, regular season and tournament champions. So in my mind, that means Louisville falls off of the 1 seed if you want UConn to be favored like that. But even when we were, I still say we a lot, when NC State was announced as the 1 seed in Bridgeport, the tickets were already 75% sold out. And at that point in time, they were 150 something for the game. Whereas the same game in Greensboro was like $45. So that was a really just unfair disadvantage for NC State and not fair for their experience. And I get it. UConn fans are everywhere. So even if they were in Wichita, there would have been a lot of UConn fans there for them in Wichita. But it's a whole different level when you're 80 miles away from your campus and you're hosting a regional site. Like, if you're not a 1 seed and you're hosting a regional site, you should not be able to play in that game. So NC State's young ladies and players, they deserved, and staff, they deserved more than that. And so I think there's been a ton of tweets. I don't know if it even like phases anybody. I don't know if anybody NCAA is like going to come forward and say, you know what, like we were wrong for that and we apologize. I don't know if that'll ever happen. So
no,
yeah, it's not the NCAA's way.
Kind of like we just got something we're supposed to just deal with and figure it out. And it's unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate. I tweeted after that game, if that game is played anywhere else, NC State wins the game. I have no doubt in my mind. Anywhere else,
agree.
like, so I'm just disappointed for them.
The last thing I want to say about that, and you mentioned the ticket prices, and you're 100% spot on. I bought them on StubHub because by the time we advanced, I could have bought them earlier. Like, hindsight being what it is, we're going to advance. But the night that we advanced, there was no tickets available on Ticketmaster, and that I spent $150 a ticket off of StubHub, and thankfully, by the grace of Coach Moore's wife, Linda, she hooked me up with getting some tickets that they had gotten, and I got them for face value. Mm-hmm. If it hadn't been to that just running into them in the lobby of the team hotel, I would have spent another probably $400 a ticket for that game. So the NCAA has to do something better to get teams to take more allotments of tickets. I know when I've gone to the men's game, I've bought them through the Wolfpack Club. They've got an allotment of 200-300 tickets. And then, look, if we don't sell them, just release them back. Yeah. I mean, UConn would have snapped them up and no problem. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to grow the game, you need to make it more accessible for fans of all teams.
Yeah, they didn't want NC State fans there, though. It's unfortunate.
Exactly. And I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. It's just been something that's been at my crawl for the last 2 weeks, and I want to see the women's game get so much better because I've been going to women's basketball games. So Old Dominion is in your conference, obviously. I remember going to their games when Dawn Staley was playing at Virginia in the NCAA tournament when we had Tina Pinachero, Wendy Larry was the coach. Like, I love the women's game, and I really want to see it get better. Yeah. And so, obviously you're here to help promote that, and we definitely appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout Eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. Go ahead, Macon.
No, you already hit it on it. He covered my question as well about the scheduling.
Okay, cool. So talking a little bit here, about the team a little bit. So, I mean, I think there's no doubt talking about this team that, first of all, I mean, it's always like, I think you're kind of getting this conversation piece with kind of like when you're kind of comparing like LeBron James versus Michael Jordan, where it's like, well, it's 2 different eras. Like, you can't necessarily compare the 2 eras. So basically why I'm saying that is basically saying like, I think that this team could have an argument for being one of the best teams to ever play at NC State in terms of talent wise. I mean, top to bottom, was experienced, was talented, was deep. I mean, I told the story on live stream and a couple times, I'll tell it to you again, Coach, about like, even when we were beating FSU badly in the tournament, we put in our scrubs, like that team looked really good. Like, like even our our scrubs, quote unquote, looked, would probably start, a lot of schools. So, I mean, it's, would you kind of make an agreement on that, and I mean, because I know you obviously had a huge hand in building this team for sure and getting the Diamond Johnson, the Madison Hayes, but it's a bold statement, but I truly think that, it has a lot of merit to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, teams that NC State's ever had. I know it is from 90s on for sure, right? I mean, I think it's got to be. There's just so many pieces, and they had 5 great starters, but then you got 2 other kids, and Diamond Johnson and Jada Boyd, who would go and start on any other ACC program 100%. Like right away. So you have 7 starters on your team, and night in, night out, you never knew who was going to be the top scorer, because it's like, okay, Elisa's like, tonight's my night, I'll take it. And then the next night it's like, all right, Jakia, it's your night. The next night, Raina. The next night, Diamond. The next night, Jada Boyd, KJ, Kai. Like, I mean, there was just so many pieces, and then, I mean, you have a great game from Camille Hobby in Kansas State for the second round game. Like, I mean, she came out and it was awesome. But then you're right. You get in Isaiah James too, getting some minutes in. I mean, they were deep. I mean, they were really deep. They were really good. Another hats off to Coach Moore. How he made them come together. How he created the culture. How he kept the culture of, this is what we're trying to do. It is we over me. Like, I need everybody bought into that. Accept your role, and we're going to have the greater good happen for the team. I mean, hats off to him, because I know that wasn't easy, but they did it, and they were able to see the benefits because of them all buying into whatever their role was. I'm sure Elisa wanted to play more minutes. I'm sure KJ wanted to play more minutes. I'm sure Diamond wanted to play more minutes, or Raina wanted to play more minutes, but they all bought into, okay, I'm out. So-and-so's got me, like, and she's got my back tonight, and I'm not playing the greatest, so now it's her turn, or whatever it may be. But they were really good and really, really fun to watch. And so, yeah, I would agree. I think one of the best teams NC State's ever had.
Absolutely. And definitely too, I definitely do got to ask you, Diamond Johnson, I know you said that you had a big part in bringing her in, but one of the things I know that we've mentioned a couple of times, how she's one of the few players that's ever actually, women players that's actually ever been a part of the Allen Iverson, team or league, whatever it's called. And I mean, and there's no doubt watching her on the court that, I mean, her talent is, I mean, it's elite. I mean, there's just no doubt how quick she is, how great she could shoot the ball. She can get to the basket. And you could really see, from game 1 and then seeing how she played versus UConn, that she really started to buy into the fact that, okay, like, I want to be a team player. Like, like I was making a statement basically saying, like, when we played the first game against South Carolina, it seemed like she still had that kind of that Rutgers mindset of like, okay, I need to do everything myself. But then like towards the UConn game, it was like she made plays for the team. She was dishing the ball out. She was really trying to, so I mean, I really love to see how she really settled in, but also grew her game as well. So, I mean, obviously heading into next season, she's definitely going to be, probably the star piece that we're going to be talking about a ton this offseason. So, I mean, what is kind of as a former recruiter of her and also a coach, what is something else about her game that, you can kind of talk about, kind of from that coaching side and also recruiting her as well?
Yeah, I mean, Diamond, we obviously recruited her really, really hard out of high school. As Coach Moore would say, the devil led her astray. There's another one-liner for you. The devil led her astray over to Rutgers, and then she came back and her mind was right, and she made the right decision to come to NC State, where she belonged the whole time. So I think she's I agree. I think over the course of the year, you saw her get more and more comfortable in her role, more and more comfortable in what NC State women's basketball is about. And she shined in a lot of moments. I mean, obviously the Louisville comeback probably doesn't happen without Diamond Johnson for sure, 100%. So I think she's just going to continue to get better and better in his system, in what NC State's trying to do, what NC State's trying to accomplish. I think Diamond's a fierce competitor. She loves those moments. That's why she came to NC State. She came to NC State for those moments I've texted with her over the course of the year, congratulating her on certain things, and she's like, this crowd, this energy, like this is what I came for. And so I think that's a big piece, and she thrives off of that. She loves the big moment. She doesn't back away. She doesn't shy away. So she's going to be a really, really special player for NC State, and I can't wait to watch what she's going to be able to accomplish in her future years.
I've nicknamed her the Fresh Princess of Raleigh from her Philly background and all of that.
I love it.
I love her fearlessness,
yes.
though. I mean, she's a bulldog in a china shop.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's got that grit. I love that grit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We were debating, preseason what we consider relatively speaking, like a successful season. Well, I think we kind of debated between the Final Four, Elite Eight, obviously, is getting past Sweet 16 for this team. There was so much talent. But I'm curious, I know Layton kind of touched on this, but from your side, how do you think this team should be remembered? I mean, they obviously made it to Elite Eight, but they kind of had it spoiled with the funky NCAA positioning and in my opinion, one of the better teams. Do you have an opinion without kind of setting it up any more than that, just what you think this team should be remembered for?
I mean, I think this team is, the one who won the third straight ACC tournament championship. This team is the one who won the first regular season championship in 30 years. I think that's right.
Yeah.
So I think, again, this team is going to be a team that's going to have a lot of jerseys hanging in the rafters one day, sooner rather than later, probably. But I think, again, those four seniors, KJ, Kai, Raina in particularly, they came back to write a story. And Coach Moore's been talking about it all year long, and especially in the tournament. They wrote a pretty special story. Elite Eight is great. They should have been able, They could have got past that if it wasn't for the NCAA, but Elite Eight's not easy. I mean, getting to Sweet 16 3 years in a row is not easy either. I mean, we should have got over that hump probably sooner than we did, but it's not easy like that. Those are hard games against great teams, and you just never know how the ball is going to fall, how the whistles are going to get called, all those things. So. But I do think this team is the team that found a way to take an additional step, just like he talked about with his step two. Like they found a way to take it to another level, and they set the bar really, really high for what NC State can accomplish, and what the team expectations are moving forward. But it's not just the Elite Eight; it's the regular season championship. It's the three-time ACC tournament championship. All of that's, it's just really special. It's not easy to do.
Yeah. Well, and one last kind of thought, kind of heading into the last question here is, one other thing which I want to throw in there as well is, I would love anybody to show me 2 or 3 games within the past maybe 5 years that were better than that UConn NC State Elite Eight game. That game was, one that, literally the whole time during our watch party,
we had 2 million views, I think, which is the most watched women's game for the year.
It's awesome.
Up until the South Carolina game. But yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, again, it like literally the whole time, even when we were losing, like we kept saying on the watch party, this has been an amazing game. Like it's been 2 teams that haven't played really sloppy. It's just that both teams were playing really well and playing against each other. And it really took Paige Beckers having the overtime of a lifetime to beat us. I really think that's really what beat us. So that's another thing I would say as well, that this team will be remembered for one of the greatest games that women's basketball has had in recent history for sure. But one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about, we can talk about for days, Kunane, and how she, could end up being, one of the greatest players to ever, play NC State for sure. And, KJ and Kai, they were such great, team role players. But Raina Perez, one of the things that we've talked about and have kind of debated, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on, is kind of wrap this up here. So, would you say, because, we kind of basically said that Raina Perez really was, we think, the perfect point guard to run what Westmore wanted to do. Obviously, if we didn't have Raina, between Kunane and the talent we have, it would have worked. But I think Raina really took it to the next level. She really did a great job running the offense. She did a great job, between dishing the ball, between making the plays, making the shot. She was consistent. She was reliable, and she was a great leader, so I mean, one things I guess we were basically getting at is, I mean, that you can make the argument that Rain Perez is probably one of the most important players that Westmore has had to this point, during his time in NC State. I want to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I remember that year in the portal, Brandon Miller came to me and said, "Hey, this kid's in the portal. Her numbers are unbelievable." I'm like, "All right, send me her clips. I'll look at it." And I'm looking at this young lady like score in a variety of different ways. What's so crazy about Raina is the thing that caught our eye about her was her ability just to put the ball in the basket, whether that's pull-ups all the way to the rim, threes, whatever. Like, she was a scoring phenom out there in California at Cal State Fullerton. So that's what drew her to us. And so I started looking at the clips, and I called Coach Moore. I'm like, we got to call this kid. Like, this kid can flat out score. And he's like, I don't know how it's going to translate. She's at Cal State Fullerton. She's small. And I'm like, I know, I'm calling her. Like, we're getting on the phone with her, right? So
I'm calling her.
So I get on the phone.
I don't need your permission, but I'm going to call her.
We're going to see what she's talking about. So called her, and she was great on the phone. I wasn't sure she was like super into it. And Coach Moore tells it all the time. Like, when she hung up and she told her brother, like, NC State called, he was like, "Oh, I've heard of NC State. Like, you need to be into this. Like, you need to get excited about it. That's a big deal." So it's just so crazy. We started recruiting this young lady because of how she could score the basketball. But she became a great floor general. She shifted her game to fit the need of what we needed. And like, we didn't know that at the time, but I mean, she just became an unbelievable leader, PG, floor general. She knocked down all the open shots. I mean, she was, like you said, consistent and reliable. And she was a kid in guard breakdowns. I don't know if there's anybody on our team that has ever went harder than her for every single possession of every practice. She goes so hard. I mean, everything she does is perfect and hard and all out. There's no halfway walking through a drill. If I don't know, it doesn't matter. She is like, she's a pro, and she works like a pro. So I actually texted her at the end of her career after the UConn game, and I said, I don't know if any other player has made more of an impact in NC State jersey in 2 years than you ever. So unbelievable get for NC State. Super blessed that she was able to come back and spend another year with them, because we just thought it was going to be a 1-year deal. And again, it worked out to be able to get her for that second year. So she's really, really special. And I don't think the last 2 years look the way they look without Raina Perez on the floor.
Amen to that.
I mean, I think she's going to go down as probably one of the all-time clutch players, just for the simple fact that the game-winning shot against Louisville in the ACC tournament, and of course the steal against Notre Dame to push us to the Elite Eight. I've been watching state basketball for many, many years, and I can't think of two more significant plays than those two, just because of the stage that it was on.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, absolutely agree. You said Diamond's fearless, and Diamond is, but Raina's fearless too. Like, Raina has no fear, and she doesn't care her size, just like Diamond doesn't care her size. They both would go toe to toe with anybody and not back down. But yeah, Raina on the big stage, she's been pretty spectacular.
I love it. Well, thank you, Coach. First of all, again, really, really appreciate this time, and I think I speak for all of us. So I could say, we could easily extend this for another hour here and talk more NC State. But again, really appreciate your time, and again, we're always wishing the best for you, and definitely we'll continue to follow you throughout your career, and hope that we could see you back in Raleigh whenever you can. But hey, even if it's Rice versus NC State, we'll be excited about that. We'll love it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be excited about it, but it would be an exciting time. I don't know if I'm excited about the game, but no, I love Wolfpack Nation, like I said, and you guys have said too. Once Wolfpack, always Wolfpack. So definitely pulling for you guys. I appreciate the time. I appreciate being on here. It's been fun chatting all things Rice and Wolfpack Nation. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I will say, if we end up playing you guys, hopefully you don't have to play with a team manager.
Yes. I have a full roster next year. Everyone told me I was crazy to sign 5 freshmen and I have a preferred walk-on, so I'm going to have 15 on roster. And everybody's like, "You're crazy," and I'm like, "Do you know the year that I just went through? Like I went through with 8 and 7 during some games. In the Charlotte game, I had 6 and a manager. So I'll take all the players that I can get right now."
Absolutely.
Well, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank
Coach.
you. I appreciate it. It means the world.
Yep. Well, thank you all so much again for tuning in. As always, make sure again hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new state content. Give this video a like, and also to give us a follow. Tuffy Talk now on Twitter or Instagram. But thank you all so much, and as always, go back, y'all. We'll see y'all soon.